One of the most harrowing female concentration camp guards of the Second World War was Irma Grese, a woman who was known as a beautiful beast. She was someone who was witnessed shooting prisoners with her pistol inside of camps such as Auschwitz and Bergen-Belsen, and she was arrested for this at the end of the Second World War, inside of Bergen-Belsen, actually trying to hide out as a prisoner. She was, though, quickly handed over to the British, and stories of her brutality and barbarism emerged, and reports of her crimes shocked the world, especially as she was just in her early 20s when she was working at the brutal camps. She would later be sentenced to death inside of Hamelin Prison's execution chamber, as experienced British executioner Albert Pierpoint secured the noose around the neck of the hyena of Auschwitz, and then he sent her plunging through the trapdoor. But what is not as well known is that Irma Grese, despite being known for being a deviant and sleeping with other SS guards, was in a relationship, and she did have a boyfriend, but her boyfriend succumbed to his death inside the same camp where she worked and displayed such horror. But she did not see her boyfriend pass away from the deadly disease of typhus, which was claiming the lives of hundreds every week. Today we look at the disturbing death of Irma Grese's evil boyfriend, another SS guard. To support our channel, please make sure to subscribe. Franz Wolfgang Hatzinger was the boyfriend of Irma Grese, and he was born on the 22nd of June 1909 inside of Mies. He was classed as a Sudeten German, and was one of those German-speaking people who lived inside the Czech region of the Sudetenland. Hitler would later be given this territory following the Munich conference, but he would of course look for more land, and he would later take the whole of Czechoslovakia. Hatzinger was an administrative inspector for his day job, but on the 1st of September 1938 he joined the Nazi Party, and he was member number 3,314,950. Within 10 days of joining the Nazi Party, Franz Hatzinger became a member of the SS. He then transferred to become a member of the Waffen-SS, and he rose throughout the different ranks of the group. For some reason though, instead of seeing action on the front lines of the Second World War, he was actually part of the Death Heads unit from early on, and he worked inside different concentration camps. Usually those SS members who were injured or who were unable to fight effectively on the front lines were transformed to become concentration camp guards. Hatzinger was sent to Auschwitz concentration camp, and this would become the deadliest site of slaughter inside of the Third Reich, as around 1.1 million people lost their lives inside the gas chambers and by shooting and other means. Auschwitz was established by Commandant Rudolf Höss, and he wanted to make the deadliest and most efficient site he could, and he relied on guards such as Franz Hatzinger to instigate a reign of terror upon the prisoners. He rose throughout different ranks inside of the camp, and he was to begin with a member of the guard force, but then from November 1943 he became the head of the technical department inside Auschwitz's main camp, Auschwitz I. It was inside of Auschwitz where he probably met Irma Grese, the infamous female guard, for the first time. He was a man who was married, but Grese was known for being very promiscuous amongst the other guards, and she regularly had different lovers, all of these being SS guards and even some of the doctors. There have even been rumours that she had an affair with the evil doctor of Auschwitz, the Angel of Death, Josef Mengele. Hatzinger would later ramp up his relations with Grese as they moved to different camps. Inside of Auschwitz though, he was the representative air warden for the entire area of the camp and would signal the alarms if a bombing aircraft was spotted nearby. Further promotion came for Hatzinger to the rank of SS Oberscharführer, and he was also made the head of the technical department inside of Auschwitz I. However, as 1943 came around, there were mass evacuations inside of the camp, and with this the prisoners were sent on death marches and towards other camps, as the Soviet Red Army were on the horizon. This evacuation of Auschwitz included many different guards who were sent towards different camps, and the SS Guard Force arrived at sites such as Bergen-Belsen. Franz Hatzinger accompanied a transport of prisoners to the very overcrowded Belsen, and he arrived there in January 1945. But it was here where he fell in love with Irma Grese, and the pair struck up a rather intense relationship. Grese had also come to the camp on a prisoner transport. It wasn't your usual love story though. The setting for this was one of the roughest concentration camps of the Second World War, and there was devastation everywhere. Belsen as a camp became very overcrowded, and diseases spread all around the site. The guards of the camp would, as the Second World War came to an end, attempt to flee, and there was a few who remained to try and keep law and order. One reporter summed up the site of Belsen and the camp as it was liberated, and he claimed, "Here over an acre of ground lay dead and dying people. You could not see which was which. The living lay with their heads against the corpses, and around them moved the awful, ghostly procession of emaciated, aimless people, with nothing to do and with no hope of life, unable to move out of your way, unable to look at terrible sights around them. Babies had been born here, a tiny wizened thing that could not live. A mother, driven mad, screamed at a British sentry to give her milk for her child, and thrust the tiny mite into his arms and then ran off, crying terribly. This day at Belsen was the most horrible of my life." But let's briefly stop for a minute and remember what beasts Hatzinger and Grese were. It was not a love story involving two characters with any redeeming qualities at all. They were both guards and monsters who had been responsible for the deaths of thousands inside of Auschwitz's gas chamber, and Hatzinger had been involved in the running of the camp to make sure as many people were killed as possible. As Bergen-Belsen fell apart and hundreds were dying each day from the diseases that were causing chaos, many of the SS guards fled, but Grese and Hatzinger both remained. He was 14 years older than Irma Grese and was actually married as mentioned, but he lived a double life inside of the camps. The commandant of Bergen-Belsen, Josef Kramer, who was also known as the Beast, actually intended to send Grese to a different camp, possibly to save her life, but she asked if she could remain at the camp at Belsen to be with Hatzinger, who was her boyfriend. If Irma Grese had have been sent to a different camp like Kramer intended, then she could very easily have been spared the hangman's gallows, as she would not have been caught at Belsen, and who knows, she may never have been caught at all. The devotion she had to her boyfriend was what would lead her to be arrested at the end of the war. As Grese remained at the camp, Franz Hatzinger actually became very ill. The guards, of course, who worked at the camp were not immune to the diseases that spread around the site, despite being given better treatment when they contracted them, and by early April 1945, Hatzinger had contracted typhus. The camp was liberated on the 15th of April 1945 by the British, and Hatzinger was one of those who was being treated presumably by the British for the disease of typhus. Typhus had claimed the lives of thousands, and many of the 13,000 corpses that lie all around Belsen unburied had died from the disease as well as the starvation. On the 23rd of April 1945, Hatzinger died inside of Bergen-Belsen. Now, despite the fact he was an SS guard and a virulent Nazi who was involved in the slaughter and death of thousands inside of Auschwitz, the British, for some reason, had Franz Hatzinger, the boyfriend of Irma Grese, interred inside a German war cemetery in Lörheide, in the wooded area near to Bergen-Belsen. He was actually even given a grave marker that outlined his date of birth and his date of death. Following his death, Irma Grese, his girlfriend, would of course be brought to a war crimes trial, the Belsen trials, and she was sentenced to death. What shocked many was the age of Grese and the fact she was in her early 20s when she was sent plunging through the trapdoor of the gallows inside of Hamlin prison. She had many boyfriends inside of the concentration camps, and she was known to have been a sadist and a deviant, but Irma Grese asked to stay inside of Belsen so she could be alongside Franz Hatzinger, but they would together terrorise the prisoners. His specific actions with regards to his crimes, especially at Auschwitz, were not documented at all, and witnesses did not tend to include Franz Hatzinger in their statements at the trials, but we must assume that if he did not die, then he would have been sentenced to death during the Belsen trials, after he would have been captured and he would have been sat next to his love inside the courtroom. His death sentence would have been passed as he worked at Auschwitz and Bergen-Belsen, and was an important cog in the slaughter process of Auschwitz. The love story of Irma Grese and Franz Hatzinger ended with a deadly disease and at the end of the hangman's rope. Thanks for watching. To support our channel, please make sure to subscribe, and once again, thanks for watching.